Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mints with Milo show, Thursday night edition. And you know what? Most of you, if you've been watching this, you're going to say, hey, stop that. You're going to say, I know. It's your Friday because you don't work except Monday through Thursdays, blah, blah, blah. Wrong. I took today off. So yesterday, Wednesday was my Friday. Na boo boo. But, I took a day off, try to get some things done. I started out making a list. I don't know, man. I told myself I was going to sleep in. I like to sleep in. I like sleep. I like to stay up late. I like to sleep late. Just didn't happen, man. Just didn't happen. Now, normally I get up at 5. I did get up at 7:30, but normally I go to bed at 9:30ish. I didn't go to bed till like 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. Got up at 7:30 and got some of my stuff done. I got some of my list done, but not all of it. But anywho, welcome to the Thursday night Minutes with Milo show. Uh, if you haven't, stop right now. I'll give you a second. No, wait a minute. You're supposed to like and subscribe. All right, ready? Go. Okay. Now that that's done, let's get on with the show. Get on with the broadcast. Broadcasting here on the internets, YouTubes, all that stuff. I'm not going to sound like Derek. On the interwebs. That sounds like Gas Monkey Garage. Okay. 3D printing. If you've heard of it, most people have. Maybe later, you'll remind me. We'll look at 3D printing a house. I mean, like a house you live in, because I think that's crazy. But they say they're doing it. I do some 3D printing. Most of the time 3D printing is akin to, CAD work. I had that little thing. I know I've showed it to you. My little square, yeah, it's got little X, Y's, and Z's on it. And a little rectangle thing that I printed to try to make something else that I was trying to print. It's around here somewhere. But normally, it's got a plate. Let's do this. It's got a plate that's heated, and it's got a big wire of plastic. Call it plastic. And then a nozzle, and the nozzle heats the plastic, and little motors push it through as it heats. And then the thing moves this way, that way, and up and down, and it prints all kinds of little things, like you can see here. Look, you can actually see the X. Wait a minute, I'll get it. Hold on. The Y and the N. Oh, wait. A Z and an N and then another Z. Okay. So that's what I print. And it's just printed, flat surface, starts at the bottom, works its way up, done in hours. It's crazy slow. But I was talking to Garthog the other day on the phone, and he says he wants to buy a resin printer. I said, okay, man, I print in plastic. What's the big hoopla about? And there he is, Garthog. He told me this stuff is, I won't say it's, I want to use this term, but it's not right. But it gives you the idea of what's going on. It's printed underwater. And it's not water, it's resin. That's right, Garthog. I'm talking about resin printing. Did you not look at the title? Did you not understand? Did you just blindly jump on here, not knowing what was going on? That's just because you love the show. I know. But anyway, he says it's printed not on any kind of platform or anything like that. I guess kind of it is, right? It has to be. But we'll look at it. It's printed totally different than what I print. Totally different. It's made with totally different materials. He says it's much more detailed. You can print smaller, more intricate things. And we'll look at some pictures. And he's right. It's pretty crazy. But there are some extra steps, right? So we'll get into those. Garthog, this is my show. Quit spoiling it for everybody. Yeah, it's we'll look at that. It's kind of upside down. It is. I looked at it. It's really cool. Uh, now see, where was I? Anyhow, much more detailed. You can print more intricate things. I guess you print in different resins, and then make it more sturdy, tougher, that kind of stuff. But it's really kind of wild. But there's one thing that's similar is you've got to make a computer generated file that the printer understands, and then it takes those and converts them into a code, and it feeds it into the software, and just like CAD or you know machine work or something, it takes those, interprets those, and then it prints it. Except for 3D, height, width, and depth, same kind of deal. So anyway, we're going to look at that, and it's really pretty cool. Uh, and we're going to try. Try. We'll try to organize these steps so that we look at what is it, how it's done. And then we're going to look at some printers, some things that are printed, and then we're going to try to find one. I was going to tonight's show. I was going to do just call it open topics. When I usually do open topics, I end up on Facebook and maybe uh, OfferUp or something like that. Craigslist, looking at ads, making light of some of the ads that are out there. And I thought, I always enjoy that. I don't know if you guys do, but I always kind of enjoy that. Just because it blows my mind what people put out there. But when I thought about resin printing, I thought, well, we could end up on Facebook looking at ads for some printers, right? Because they run the gamut, just like a regular. I don't want to call it plastic. Uh, it's called PLA. It's what I use. It's like a plastic wire. And what if you could get you some small weed eater string and print it through my printer? Probably not. I think weed eater string's too big. But I did say where somebody took like 3 or 4 uh, nylon wire ties and shoved that thing into a hot glue gun and glued some plastic together, made some repairs on some plastic things. I think I'll try that. I mean, I need a bigger glue gun though, but maybe not. Uh, Plastic welding, as sometimes it's called, is pretty useful. I've repaired a couple of things and then they broke again, but I repaired them once. I might have to repair them 10 or 15 times, but I fixed them. All right, so resin printing. And I'm going to have to, I prepared this. I know it's kind of funny. Whoa, what? No, man. What are you doing? There we go. Oh, here. Put that on there. Cat. Oh, boy. Boy. Don't, don't make me come in there. I want to, there we go. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So what is a resin 3D printer and how does it work? This is by Michael DeWamina. This is a 2021. So this has been around. Been around the block a day or two. Updated. Updated November 13th, 2023. It takes 12 minutes to read it. We may not read the whole thing. But, all right, click over here. All right, resin 3D printers have grown in popularity for a while now. They must be popular outside my circles because I just heard about it a couple of weeks ago, maybe. Mainly due to how easy they are to use. Okay. As well as significant price decrease. That has led to many people wondering what exactly a resin 3D printer is and how it works. That's why I decided to write this article. Okay. Skip through that. A resin 3D printer is a machine that holds a vat. And that, my friends, is the biggest difference. Well, the second biggest difference. First biggest difference, it is one of the biggest differences between what I print in my my right side up world and what the resin printer people print. Printer people print. Okay? So, first is a vat of photosensitive liquid resin and exposes it to UV LED light beams layer by layer to harden the resin into a plastic 3D model. The technology is called SLA or stereolithography and can provide 3D prints with extremely fine detail at a 0.01 millimeter layer height. I'm going to assume that's pretty good. You mainly have two options while picking a 3D printer. First is the filament 3D printer, which is widely known as FDM or FFF 3D printing, and the second is resin 3D printer, also known as SLA or MSLA 3D printer. I do the filament. If you look at the result models printed in those two different technologies, you will likely notice a great difference in quality. Resin 3D printers have the ability to print 3D models that will have super smooth surfaces and fine details. FDM 3D printers may not be able to print models of such high quality because of the positioning accuracy, nozzle size, and large layer height capability. And that's true. So you start out with just a filament of plastic, and it's heated, and it's forced you force the plastic into the nozzle and out the other nozzle. So it's what I would consider extruding hot plastic, and then it moves the nozzle around with motors, and it lays that down, and as it lays it down, it of course cools and it sticks together. So, it's going to be thicker because you're dumping a certain amount of plastic into this thing so that it doesn't break up while it's moving it around, and it's heating it up thoroughly so it can't move too fast, it can't move too slow, or it screws everything up. It skips or it globs out. It can do all kinds of screwy things. So, but where does the vat come in? Okay? The main components of a 3D resin printer. And when Garthok was explaining this to me, I was running around in the barn. I wasn't, anywhere I could. No, and more no. Stop it. I wasn't at a computer, so I couldn't sit down and see what he was telling me. So I kind of had to envision this in my mind. And then these, I don't know, female images kept popping in and going out and popping out. Maybe I wasn't concentrating. Maybe I just didn't understand what he was saying. But when I looked at it on the internet, because guys are visual, articles are good, but guys are visual. So when I looked at it on the internet, I thought, now that makes sense. Now, because here's what I was picturing when he was explaining it to me. He said it was printed under the layer of liquid. And he said you pour the resin, which is a liquid, hello, into the printer, okay? So now I'm thinking fish tank. In my mind, it was a fish tank. And I thought, well, wouldn't that stuff leak out? But I don't know. I'm going with it because I've never seen it. I don't know what, never seen one. So I was thinking fish tank. When in reality, it's not, you know, a big thing that you feel the whole thing, and then you watch the printer down inside there making this stuff. No, I don't think it's like that. Because what I've seen here and looked at it, uh, I won't spoil it. We'll look at it. We'll figure this out together. But it's not a fish tank. All right, so main components of a resin 3D printer is a resin vat. It's not a tank, but it's a vat. An FEP film, a build plate. Mine's got a build plate. A UV LCD screen, UV acrylic lid to retain and block light. If you looked at my thumbnail, you notice that the doors were open on that printer, but when you closed them, it looked like it was orange glass, and that's, the UV acrylic lid. So it's blocking out certain light rays. Linear rails for Z movement, a display touchscreen, a USB drive, thumb screws to secure build plate and resin vat. Makes sense totally, doesn't it? You can get a clear idea that an FDM 3D printer of excellent quality can usually print a minimum of a 0.05 to 0.1 millimeter, and that's 50 to 100 microns for you guys that know what a micron is. Layer height, while a resin printer can print as low as a 0.01 to a 0.25 millimeter or 10 to 25 micron, which ensures much better detail and smoothness. So even at the max of the resin printer, it's still half the size of the minimum size of the filament printer. It does also translate into taking longer to print overall, but another key difference is how resin 3D printers can cure a whole layer at a time rather than needing to outline the model like filament printers do. I'm not sure about that. I don't know what that is. A model printed with a resin 3D printer is going to have layers better fused with each other in a way that brings those high quality models that people love. They are known to be more brittle than filament 3D prints, but there are now some great high strength and flexible resins that you can make use of. A resin 3D printer has fewer moving components than a filament printer, which means that you don't have to worry about dealing with too much maintenance. I wonder how that works. Because, mine, it moves. The table moves back and forth. All right. So if you're standing, let's say you're standing in front of it, the table moves away from you and back to you to get that movement. The little motor and nozzle that sits on the gantry, it moves left to right to get that movement. And then the gantry itself moves up and down to get the height. So we'll look and see how this differs. I'm not sure. In the early days, you are likely to damage your FEP film since it is prone to punctures, mainly due to residue not being cleaned out before the next 3D print. They are also expensive to replace, with a pack of 5 going for around $15 each. So that's $3 a piece. I mean, I don't know, is that expensive? I don't know. So Garthog resin types are ABS, PLA, PETG, nylon, polycarbonate, and plain resin. They all vary with durability and brittleness. That's a lot. Because I think that filament only has like 2 main types of filament. I don't know. They got lots of colors, but I think it's two main types of filament. Another consumable is the LCD screen within the 3D printer. With the more modern monochrome screens, these can last up to 2,000 plus hours of 3D printing. The RGB type of screens run out of steam quicker and can last you maybe 7 to 1,000 hours of printing. The LCD screens can be fairly pricey depending on what 3D printer you have, the larger being the more expensive ones. A large one for, say, the Anycubic Photon Mono X, like a Starship, could set you back around $150. Now that's just for the screen. Now that's expensive. I think that's expensive. Manufacturers have gotten better at prolonging the lifespan of these screens. Over time, you get dimmer. It also extend life further by having a longer light delay. Probably slows down the printing. All right, we're not going to look at that right now, how it works. Okay. Resin 3D printing is the technology in which liquid resin is stored in a container instead of being injected through a nozzle. Major terms or types of resin 3D printing include stereolithography, SLA, digital light processing, and liquid crystal display, LCD, or masked stereolithography. I think it's already too complicated for me. So he says you can get clear resin as well. So you can make transparent stuff like, transparent aluminum. The stuff they use on Star Trek. SLA standards for stereo and blah blah works with the help of UV laser light. It's applied to the surface of the container, which is mainly known as resin vat. All right. The SLA stands for, we read that, stereolithography, and the SLA resin 3D printer works with the help of UV laser light that is applied on the surface of a photopolymer container, which is mainly known as the resin vat. Not a fish tank, a vat. The light is applied in a specific pattern so that desired shape can be formed. The SLA 3D printers include various components such as a building platform, a resin vat, a light source, an elevator, and a pair of galvanometers. The main purpose of the elevator is to increase or decrease the height of the building platform so that layers can be formed during the printing process. The galvanometers are the pair of movable mirrors which are used to align the laser beam. So now, laser beam shoots, mirrors refract it certain ways, and we'll look at it. That laser light shoots into the liquid, and when it hits it, it makes it form, I guess it makes it solid. As the resin vat contains uncured resin, it hardens in layers due to the effect of the UV light and begins to form a 3D model. Resin 3D printers keep on printing one layer after the other, and this process is repeated until a fully 3D printed model of an object is complete. So, there may be lots of big differences between these two, but I think that gives us the biggest idea about this resin printing. Is it's made with UV, it works with UV light, resin. Well, let's step back. A UV laser, so not just like a light bulb, not like you'd get a tan with or anything like that. It's a laser, so it's very accurate. The mirrors are highly, I'm sure, accurate. And so when the laser hits the resin to harden it, it's very, very fine. It's very, very pinpointy. Pinpointy is a good word. All right. So let's look at, what's my next one? We'll look at some pictures. Now, these are all, like I said, just off the internet. And they're all trying to get you to click on either an ad or a video, or somebody's got something for sale or something like that. But now this one is really cool. I like this. See, let's get up here. See the yellow square? This is what I printed. Something similar to this. Look at the intricacy of that. Very small, very fine detail. Pretty wild. I don't know if I could print that with my printer. I mean, it looks, according to his or her hand size, oh, she's got a scar right there. See that scar? Wow. Damaged. Damaged goods. See how that's very thin? I don't know if mine would print that well. I mean, that just in of itself looks to be about the size of my filament. Now it might. It might. I don't know. Never tried. Don't need to try. Let's see what else we got. They do some crazy things I was seeing. And most of these show off. Oh, that's a Rubik's Cube. Huh. Most of them show off the detail, the intricacy that, you can get with these. Which is awesome. All right. So now, oh man, look at that thing. Wow. Now that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. What else we got? Look, it printed a human. Nice chest piece. Look at the way see how it twists. And it's green tinted, transparent looking. That's cool. Ooh, looks like this guy's trying to print the Death Star. Alright, I don't know what that is, but just as a sneak preview, as I understand it, this is the build plate. And see how, if this were my printer, this would be the bottom. Okay? And it would be printing as it went up this way. Now, in a resin 3D printer, look and see how it's shiny, it looks wet. This is the top. And it's printing this as it pulls the build plate out of the resin. And it's printing this downward. And I say downward because this is the first thing it prints. It pulls it up, and this is the last thing it prints. So to me, this is the top, and this would be the bottom. Mine's totally opposite, and mine doesn't look shiny because it's not wet. Is resin wet? I think it is. All right. So just as a quick point out thing, we'll look at this in more detail. Build plate, printed object, resin vat. I think that's the way it works. So it starts out with this piece down here. It starts to print, and as it pulls up, this is printed. Totally opposite of what I have to do. Wow, that's cool. That is cool. Look at that thing. That's wild. Look at the size of that critter. That's got to be a good size printer. Unless, I wonder how they got the sword out there. I mean, that thing is by to me, by 3D printer standards, is huge, especially the fact that the sword sticks out that far. All right, there's a picture of one. Not at all what I had envisioned in my mind. Not at all what I had envisioned in my mind when he was talking to me about it. Ooh, check that hand out. Let's give him a hand, folks. Woohoo! Think we get it to print us one of these? Maybe. I'd buy a couple of them if I could. Oh, here's a good picture. This just kind of lets you visualize it. Working surface, model, resin vat. Now, I don't know where the laser comes into this. So I have no idea. We'll look at that. All right. So, woo. A quick guide to resin 3D printed by Carolyn Schwar, updated March 7th, 2024. So this is really up there. All right, there's some pictures. Various resin 3D prints produced on Formlabs resin 3D printers. Source, Formlabs. All right, so here, resin 3D printing is a general term for several types of 3D printing. The most common use of a vat of liquid resin, leading to the technical term for resin 3D printing, vat polymerization. It comes in three main variations. We looked at that earlier. Okay, so selective exposure to light by the laser. So this is the vat, and apparently the bottom of the vat is transparent because the laser shot in here and is controlled by the mirror, which goes up through and hits a certain point, and that makes that portion of the resin solidify or harden. Garthon said that would take 18 hours to print. That big dude with the sword, is that what you're talking about? I've skipped on. I wasn't sure. Is that, 18 hours? It was going to take, it was going to take a couple hours just for me to print like a 9x10 rectangle of really thin stuff. All right, so let's see what LCD MSL looks like. Okay. So here, instead of one laser shooting into the liquid, apparently you have an array of LEDs, and the computer controls the lights that shoot individual LEDs that then shoot through the bottom of the vat and harden the resin. So if you were going to print something over here, this light would come on, and then the one next to it, and then the other one over here, depending on what you're printing. And then DPL looks like it has a big beam of light and has a digital micrometer device that then controls where the light goes. Right, so see the orange glass, the orange plexiglass, whatever you want to call it, that to me is UV resistant. So the light in the room does not affect the resin in the vat. Because, if you've ever did manual photo processing, and at certain points when you're developing the negative, and you're developing the prints from the negatives, and you're washing the exposed photo paper in the solutions to make it happen, to make it, process the photo. It has to be done not in complete darkness, but only in certain types of light. So you always had like no room lights, no white lights or anything like that. You just had like a special bulb. I think it was red or orange or whatever the special bulb was that would not affect the photosynthesis process or photo process, whatever terminology I could think of it, that's used to develop the negative in the liquid. If you had a bright light or just a regular room light, it would make the picture completely black because the light overexposed it and made the photosensitive paper, light sensitive paper, just go completely black. So that's what the orange glass does. It protects the resin while it's doing the printing from the UVs. So we've looked at a lot of this. This talks about some of the development of the techniques. Because of lasers and moving parts, SLA machines are usually not on our list of top budget resin printers, but rather on our list of best professional resin printers, which started around 3,500. SLA printers are highly accurate, but slower than other resin technologies. A near full plate printing running on an Anycubic Photon Mono M5S, which is a starship above what that other one was we looked at. All right, here's a LED. In the digital light processing DLP method of resin 3D printing, a projector shines light onto a micro mirror device that redirects some light in the patterns of a slice of the object being printed onto the layer of resin. So here you see they've got multiple mirrors, the projector, UV light going up into, see this one doesn't show you the vat of resin unless this is it, but I doubt if that's it. That's probably the, what was that piece they talked about that you had to have? I think that's the LCD screen. I would think. That was the one that it talked about. Some of them would last now, they would last up to 2,000 hours of printing. So apparently, I'm guessing that that's what that is. Huh. Printer making, I don't know. Printer maker Striasis offers a type of DLP resin 3D printing in its origin printer called programmable photopolymerization. Pretty slick looking machine. All right, so let's look at one of these videos over here. Let's watch this. Let's watch it on YouTube. And let's turn on the volume so everybody at home and in their car.
Hi, it's Michael. In this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to get started with resin 3D printing. For only a few hundred...
Okay, I'm going to print it or pause it for just a second because it really looks fuzzy. And that's not just because I'm, showing it to you, but on my screen, it really looks kind of blurry.
$100, you can be printing your own stuff, like this saber-toothed tiger skull. I think that's called a Smilodon. I'm going to cover what it'll cost to get into it, all the extra stuff that you might want to buy, and touch on how to keep your workspace fairly clean and resin-free. I've got a lot of info to get through, so let's see that main title and get started.
I don't have an intro like that. Because I don't have 68,000 subscribers.
So before I get started, I want to thank...
with 1 million views from 3 years ago. So this is not really what I had hoped for. Maybe was there another one up here? I thought there was two thought there was 2 videos on this article. I don't know. Let's see. See if we can get us a better one. Well, that guy's probably got a man bun. That might be okay to watch. This guy's got a pretty good thumbnail. Okay. 3D resin printing for beginners. How a printer works. This is us, people. Not for Garthog.
Every college student needs to have Grammarly in their life. If you didn't know, Grammarly is an AI writing partner that helps students with their writing from beginning to end so that they can get good grades with integrity and confidence.
Learn to write cursive, chick.
Hey guys, welcome to part 1.
Oh, this guy, this is Vogman. He's got 129,000 subscribers. This has had 147,000 views 2 years ago. So let's do theater mode so it takes up most of the screen. All right. And let's just leave closed captions on. All right. So let's get in. Can you hear that, Garthog? The couple little snippets I played. Can you hear it? Can you hear my garage door opening and
One of my easy step-by-step guide to 3D printing. A basic understanding of how 3D printing works is very...
Oh, is it too loud? I can turn it down. I paused it because this guy shows right off, right in the intro, almost everything we've talked about. So here, he's pouring the resin, which is thicker than what I imagined. He's pouring the resin into the resin vat, which is not a fish tank. It was a fish tank in my mind, but it's not a fish tank. It's more like a tray with a glass or a bottom that you put that film in. What was it they called it? The thing that the light shines through. So it's got to be, I won't say clear, but it's got to be a transparent bottom so the light can shine through it. See it right in here? He's pouring it all in there. Okay? Then, as we move further into the video, he shows the vat of liquid, of resin, and then he's showing the work table, the workpiece, being dipped down into the resin. Right?
Step-by-step guide to 3D printing. A basic understanding of how 3D printing works is very useful if you want to understand why prints might succeed and, just as importantly, why they might fail. So today we're going to have a brief and simplified look at the process.
That's for me.
It begins not with the printer, but with the resin. There's lots of different sorts, colours and brands out there, but they all have one thing in common. 3D resins are liquids, which become solid when exposed to UV light. Now UV light is pretty much everywhere that there's daylight, so keep that in mind. Resins come in opaque bottles for this reason. So if you leave the lid off your printer or store your resin in a transparent bottle, you'll soon have a sturdy paperweight on your hands. And despite what people might tell you, you do not need direct sunlight. This lot froze inside my home on a windowsill that gets no direct sunlight. A 3D printer is essentially a device that controls the process of UV curing. Inside the base of an average printer, you'll find banks of LEDs, a laser, or even a projector, all of which emit UV light in patterns focused through a screen. As printing on top of the screen would ruin it and make printing a pretty costly affair, prints are constructed on removable build plates. the build plate is connected to what's called a Z-arm, and this is
So the Z-arm, as you can imagine, goes up and down. Now what goes left and right? I bet the tray moves or something.
raised and lowered by the turning of a screw thread. To contain the liquid resin, a tray sits between the screen and the build plate. These resin trays have a transparent film across the bottom known as an FEP. Now, these are developing even as I'm speaking, and are often given fancier names. But think of them as FEPs or FEPs, as they do the same job. These are generally flexible and taut like a drum. During a typical print run, the build plate is lowered on the Z-arm and plunged into the resin. It's lowered until it's in very close proximity to the FEP. At that point, UV light is projected in a specified pattern, and where this occurs, the resin hardens, sandwiched between the build plate and the FEP. The thickness of this print is very thin, typically around 1/20th of a millimetre. The UV light then turns off and the build plate pulls away steadily. As it does, the print peels from the FEP and remains fixed on the build plate. If you listen carefully during the printing process, you can often hear this as a small tapping or ripping sound, which is perfectly normal. One layer has now been printed, and it may have only taken a few seconds. However, prints typically require hundreds or even thousands of layers, each printed on top of the last. The size of the layer doesn't matter. It takes the same amount of time to print a layer this size as it does to print a layer this size, which makes resin printing a relatively fast process. For the second layer, the build plate once again descends, but this time not quite as far. The UV light fires, the resin hardens, and the second layer bonds to the first one and is completed. And so the process repeats again. Over a period of time, the prints build in layers, rising from the resin tray fixed firmly to the build plate. With the majority of printers, the print is formed upside down, hanging in place and dripping resin into the tray below. So gravity is always trying to pull the print from the plate. There's also a small amount of suction tugging on the print each time it rises from the FEP. But if the print is supported properly and the build plate is nice and level, it survives these forces and creates a successful print. But if the print isn't properly supported, or if the build plate isn't correctly fitted and levelled, the print fails, becoming an ugly blob on the FEP. Once complete, the build plate is removed and the print is freed from it. It's then cleaned, often in an alcohol-based solution, to remove any uncured resin. Finally, it's set with an exposure of more UV light. And that, in a nutshell, is that. So we now have a basic idea of how the resin printing process works, and we've also got an idea about why resin prints might fail. There are other reasons, but plate leveling is one of the most common. So in the next video, we'll take a look at unboxing a typical 3D resin printer, assembling it, and leveling the build plate. Until then, thanks for watching and happy printing.
Warning!
All right. So there you go. It doesn't print it all underneath there. And it's not a fish tank. It's just a very shallow tray with a clear-ish bottom. Now it makes total sense to me. And it's printed upside down. And all those pieces that were hanging down are supports. Mine, the way that I print it, or it's done on mine, since it's created from the bottom as it grows up, if it's tall and thin in places, you might have to draw in some supports so that during the printing process, it's not moved or swayed or anything like that. And then like this one, once it's done, you break or snip those off. And then it just leaves what you really wanted to print with no supports, because once it's, hopefully, you drew it correctly. So once it's finished, it's sound and sturdy and stands, lays, sets, whatever, on its own. And you don't need the supports anymore. So that was like a very interesting 5-minute video that explains it. So now, if you want to, like Garthog, to get into it, how are you going to buy one? Let's look at, I don't know what I searched for here. Let's look real quick. Not there. Not here. Let's go back to here. What was my search? Let's not look at 3D printing or resin printing. Let's look at the printers. Okay. And we're going to go shopping. Lots of shopping. And see what we've got. This is my brand, Creality. Let's look at that manufacturer. And we'll just look at Amazon because everybody knows about Amazon. Well, stop that. I don't want you to move. Alright, so here's a Creality Resin 3D printer, Halot Mod S. And it's $550. It's on Amazon. Now this one, Creality Resin 3D printer Halot Mod, this is an S 14K. But there's a difference. There's a 550 and a 290 version. And this is a Hollow Mod Pro resin. It's $339. Let's look at this one. Creality Resin 3D printer Halot Mage S 14K with a 10.1 inch H high def LCD MSLA mono 4x high speed printing. Large print size is 8.7 by 4.9 by 9.0. $489. I don't know what the 10 or 14K means. What does that mean, Garthog? Can you print gold? Agile, steady, Dynamax motion system. Alright, so that one looks like a good one, but it's almost $500. Stunning 14K, utterly exquisite. Our 14K Creality Resin 3D printer equipped with those things, big number things. Vilifying all details of jewelry and miniatures. The sizable 10.1 display provides a spacious, bigger print area and creations with greater clarity and sharpness. Interesting. Interesting. So it is free delivery. You can get one by Tuesday, October the 8th. And just jump in there and buy that thing. All right. Let's see. Now see, these aren't resin printing. This is an Ender 3. I've got an Ender 3. I can't see that one on the end. We're running out. Why didn't they show us more of the... See, this is a filament printer like what I have. It's not showing me, but just those. All right, let's get rid of Creality. Maybe they don't make a lot of resin printers. Frozine Sonic Mighty 8K. Anycube Photo Mono M5S Pros 530. Frozen Sonic Mini LCD Resin 3D printer is $130. This one's $200. Let's look at Anycubic Photo Mono 2 Resin 3D printer with 6.6 inch 4K. So the dude's upside down, man. Let's see what that was all about. It says storms are possible tomorrow. Lovely. Simply lovely. All right. So depending on like anything, the bigger you want, the more resolution you want, you can spend, $130 to $600 to even $1,000 on one of these printers. Now that's new, and I don't think that comes with any kind of resin or any of that kind of stuff. And we haven't even looked at it. If you paid attention on that video, the last thing the guy said was that the model is finished with a UV what am I trying? A curing. That's the word. It's finished or cured in a special UV chamber. All right. So would you have to buy one of those too? Probably would. Now Garthog says you can just take it and sit it in the sun. I assume direct sunlight, and you get it to completely cure there. So I guess when it comes out of the printer, it's sturdy and everything, but it's not completely cured. So Garthok has made some comments here. Let's see. Go back. You can get free printing files online. Now, the beauty of that is you don't have to know how to draw CAD. The bad side of that is you take what you get. So if you don't find 3 dolphins jumping over the moon on some of those already made 3D printer sites or sharing sites, then you're just out of luck. You'd have to learn how to draw that yourself and print it yourself. But if you don't mind making a penguin or something more common or what somebody else has already done and put out there, you can just download the file, set it in your printer, and let it run. So it says you can get a decent 3D printer, and this is all resin stuff he's talking about, for around $300. Saturn resin printer for $210 US. This is a good starter unit. You can use the sunlight to cure. Yeah, you have to know how to use a slicer. And a slicer is a piece of software that basically takes, and I have to use a slicer. I have to use slicer software when I print things. So you draw it, you save it as a certain type of file, Then you open it in your slicing software. And what that does is basically takes the image and then translates that into the code that actually runs the printer. And why you call it slicing is because, it's printed one layer at a time, and it has to know when to start and stop, and, when to go back, when to do all these things, when to print this part, when to print that part. So the slicer software just basically takes, call it a CAD file that you've drawn. It breaks it down into layers and then tells the printer, this is what you're printing this layer, this is what you're printing this layer, and this is what you're printing the next layer, and so on and so forth. How far you move up, left, right, down, all that kind of stuff. And that's what translates your picture to something the printer can understand, and then go out and actually start to print it. So there are steps that, both 3D printers have to use. You have to get the image or the file, the photo, the design, whatever you want to call it. Then you have to convert that into something that the 3D printer understands, and it has to have all those variables in there that have to be just right. And then you send it to the printer, and it reads it, and it starts printing. Then, if you don't want to buy a UV curing chamber, you just set it outside. And like the guy says, it doesn't have to be in direct sunlight. I'm sure that would speed up the process. But I would hate to think that, you're going, oh, well, I'll just print stuff and set it in the sunshine, let it cure. And then, on a rainy day, it's like, man, I can't print nothing because it'll never cure. It's probably not the case. It might take it a lot longer, but, I'm sure it would cure eventually. Maybe. Super fast 4K 3D printing resin from Amazon. How much do you get? Now, Garthog was telling me, let's just say you start out with, how much is here? Does it not tell me? How big's the bottle? Come on. Is it like 10 ounces, 25 ounces? Well, how much is it, doofus? Oh, you're making me mad. You're making me mad. It doesn't tell me, but it looks like maybe, what's that say? Hmm, 1,000 grams? It's not a liquid measure. I don't see one that's legible enough to read. But it doesn't use a bunch because it's only curing that very small piece that, is hardening. It's being cured. So when it lifts up and then all that stuff drips off, let's just say, you may start out with pouring it into your vat, maybe 16 ounces because, a pint. Every time you say pint, have a sip. And so when you're done printing, and I'm just making numbers up, you might have 15.5 ounces left to make one model. And then I'm sure you restore that in your sealed opaque bottle so it doesn't harden. Seal it up, put it somewhere, store it, and then the next time you want to print, you take your 15.5 ounces, pour it out into your tray, and you print something else, and then maybe then you only have 15 ounces, and you do that process. And I guess at some point in your vat, well, it would probably be very, very little. I'm thinking about that. At some point, you're going to have to refill your vat because there won't be enough resin left in the bottom of your vat to submerge the build plate in order to start printing. So let's just say you cannot use the last 3/4 of an ounce or 1 ounce of a bottle because it's just not deep enough in your vat to submerge your build plate. So out of a 16-ounce bottle, you might have 15 ounces that are totally usable because, like I said, the dregs, the very bottom part, may not be deep enough to use because of the build plate. And I guess, I don't know, would you throw that away? Let's just say if you bought 5 bottles of this gunmetal gray resin, could you take that 1 ounce and save it and then mix it with another new bottle or a slightly less used bottle? You know, or can you pour out your vat, the very last ounce, into that bottle and then collect it and then reuse it, you know, in 6 or 8 months? I mean, I don't know. Seems like it'd be bad if you had to throw away that last little bit that you couldn't use. Okay, he says, Garthog says, yes, you can reuse it. So I'm sure there's somewhere in there, once you open it and everything, there's probably a shelf life. But, you know, once you get started printing, man, you just might print your whole world. You never know. You never know. How come that looks? Okay. Ah, what did it do? Didn't want it to do that. All right, we've been going a long time. Facebook. I just jumped on here, put in Resin 3D printer. Okay. And I don't know what's good or bad. We're just going to look. Elgoo 3D resin printer with wash station, $450 in Greenville, Tennessee. Looks like the wash station. Remember that one guy talked about rinsing his models in I guess an alcohol solution deal. So there's your printer station. There's your wash station. Doesn't say anything about a curing station. Is that what that is? That's a curing station right there. So you got the printer. All right, read the description, Milo. Come on. Elgoo Resin 3D printer, Saturn S Mono MSLA 3D printer, UV Pro photo curing resin LCD 3D printer with 9.1 inches 4K monochrome LCD offline print. So it does come with the printer, a photo curing UV photo curing resin LCD printer with. It comes with the wash station and curing station for large resin 3D prints. Compatible with Saturn, Mars, MSLA 3D printers. So that pretty much looks like that's Caleb Jackson. He's out of Greenville, Tennessee. Looks like a pretty good maybe if it works and everything's good. You get all 3 major components for $450. If the Elgoo 3D resin printer is in account, that might be a good deal because you get everything that you need. You don't want to travel to Sugar Hill, Georgia, do you? Let's see. Here's your Creality Halot 1 CL60. That's in Johnson City for $200. Yeah, the wash station and the curing station is not a necessity, but very handy. I could see that. I mean, you know, you could fill up, let's just say it is rubbing alcohol and water. You know, if you're printing small things, you might get you a little bucket or cut a gallon jug in half, mix your own solution together, just stick it down in there and agitate it around and sit it out on your windowsill, right? All right, you get 2 Creality Halot 1 resin printers for $300. That's in Bluefield. Let's see what an expensive one. Let's see what kind of high dollar ones we can find. Ooh. $275. Okay, nope. That's not resin. 550 3D resin printer and accessories. This is in Pulaski. What all do you get? This is Anycubic. I got it to run for 3 prints during the summer, but the resin has a potent smell, like when you pop the plastic open on your new Power Ranger figure. Okay. But I'm moving and need the money at the moment. ATM. The box underneath is the cure and washing station for prints never been opened. All the tools for the printer, including the USB with Anycubic software downloaded, 1/2 bottle of clear resin, 1 bottle of gray extra strength resin, Pulaski, Virginia, Taylor, China. He gives one picture. One picture. I like looking in the backgrounds. Let's see what we got in the backgrounds here. This looks like a bag of garbage down here. A chair. There's a door. That might be a table. Back here's a desk. This looks like a shelf with maybe a something on it. Well, yeah, shelf with something on it. Good one, Milo. Yep, that's what that looks like. There's your Anycubic wash and cure resin station for $50. So I wonder how that works. So it's got a yellow cover, and then you see in here. So do you think you have a plastic bucket that contains your washing solution? Then once it's washed, you remove that and put the part down on probably a little turntable there and turn on a UV light and put the yellow cover over it and let it cure. So one piece of equipment does 2 jobs. That would be smart. $50. Never used. Listed 3 weeks ago in Jefferson City. Now, I'm going to find you something, Garthog. You're going to print us some 3D resin printed stuff here. We're going to get you going. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Granite Falls, North Carolina. Here we go. Envision Tech Micro Plus XL Plus Curing Unit Resin 3D Printer was $1,999. It's $1,795 currently. Retails for, come again? Can you see that? You can't see that. Let me show you this. Scoot that over. Come on, man. Scoot that over. Let the people seize. Let the people seize. Look at that. All right, surely this is a typo. So he's wanting $1,800 for this thing. He says it retails for $19,300. Man's got an extra 0 in there. Perfect condition, comes with curing station, $350. Resins and 3 new additional trays. Paid $200 each. That's $600. Worth over $20,400, except cash only. Kevin Rutter. I think he's 0 happy on those things. But he's wanting $17.95 for that. That seems like that might be pretty decent. I don't know. All right. So now we've learned about 3D resin printing. It's pretty cool. You can go to Georgia. Bought it to make leather stamps. Never used it. Comes with printer, curing station, and a bottle of resin. Reality 3D printer, resin printing with cure station, BNIB. Bought new in box. That's what I'm saying BNIB stands for. 5 weeks ago, Hoshkonshish in Georgia. Chris Nichols. It's got his workout here on the, you can't see it. Got his workout routine there on the dry erase board. Something Thursdays, 3x10 forearm extensions, something by 10 pull-ups. Yeah. All right. 2 pictures. Pretty good size deal. 3D printer with Cure Station. Bought new in a box. All right. So it's out there, man. Just jump out there and get you one, Garthog. Come on, man. Come on. Just do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. All you got to do is do it. All right. So, once again, we have learned new stuff on the Minutes with Milo Thursday edition show. If you lasted this long, it's probably one of the longest ones I've done. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, neighbors about it. And get out there and do something with it. Go out there and print you some resin stuff. When I was talking with Garthog about this, the things that I want to print are rudimentary. Okay? So I just want to be able to print a couple of things that are useful to me that I can't go out and buy, and hopefully, they're simple and I can do them, and I'm not really concerned about the finish of them as long as they fit okay and they're durable. I could sand them down if I have to, if I want to make them smooth, or I can just leave them raw if they work. So, I'm by no means a CAD operator or designer or anything like that. So it's just as big as a struggle to me to make the picture, to slice it, to get it to print. I'm just not really concerned about how accurate the finish is or the print. Now, maybe one day I might get into some heavy duty stuff that I just can't do with a filament printer. But, Garthog says he wants to print and learn how to print some pretty, intricate, I won't say minute, but pretty intricate stuff that he wants a good finish on. It has to be a pretty good tolerances or whatever it might be. So this is where he likes, or he's going to look at, the resin printing. So I don't know which is cheaper. I know when mine's done, it's done. It cools. It's finished. You don't have to cure it. You don't have to wash it. You don't do anything with it. You're done with it. Can you see? If I can get that light to shine, I mean, you can see a little bit in there of the texture of the layers. Where's my mic at? It's down here. So that does have, a fillable, rough, surface to it. I mean, it's not like sandpaper. It's slick. But when you look at it, you can kind of see the layers. And then the corners, the edges, these little edges aren't perfect. You can feel a little ridge on them. But I'm okay with that. All right, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for watching. Leave me a comment. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing good. And as always, tune in next Thursday. Same Milo time, same Milo channel. All right, let's push the button and stop streaming. See y'all later. Bye-bye.